It feels surreal to be the one narrating this, but I'm currently in my silent living room, nursing a cold drink, still attempting to fully grasp the events that unfolded in our quiet suburban enclave a couple of months ago. Let's be clear. When you settle down in the suburbs, you anticipate weekend cookouts, kids on bicycles, and perhaps an overly inquisitive neighbor. You do not anticipate a scenario involving two men brandishing firearms that your spouse's neighbors look on, and you certainly do not expect to discover in that exact instant that your wife is a complete stranger to you. We had just relocated to Maple Ridge, a seemingly perfect community just outside Denver. After what felt like an eternity in cramped city apartments, I believe I had finally provided my wife, Claire, with a life she was owed. A yard, a dedicated office, the complete suburban ideal. Claire always maintained that her profession was simple fitness coaching, assisting stress executives and busy moms with their wellness routines. Nothing high profile. She delivered baked goods to new residents, participated in a local yoga class, and frequented the farmer's market. I genuinely thought my wife was a person defined by gardening and Pilates. My assessment could not have been more wrong. It began subtly, as these situations often do. A man named Martin, the self-appointed community safety captain, appeared one morning outfitted in a tactical vest and carrying a clipboard. He was inspecting our new fence. It was 7 a.m., before my coffee had even finished brewing, and this individual was behaving like a forensic investigator. I found it amusing, dismissing him as just another power-hungry HOA member. But when Claire joined me and laid eyes on him, something changed. Her entire demeanor shifted. Her respiration became deliberate. She analyzed him from head to toe, as if she were assessing a potential danger. At the time, I assumed it was just heightened caution. Now, I understand what I was witnessing. Martin puffed out his chest, brandishing clipboard. This fence is in direct violation of community safety standards. His voice had a rehearsed, wannabe officer quality. Before I could respond, Claire interjected with an overly saccharine tone I'd never encountered. "Oh, officer, I am so terribly sorry. I had no idea." She sounded like a caricature of a helpless homemaker, but her gaze was kinetic, cataloging escape routes, monitoring his hands, and studying him with an intensity that suggested she was memorizing every detail. That's when a different resident, Gerald, ambled over. He professed to be a retired attorney, gray hair, gentle smile, the quintessential grandfatherly type. He offered to mediate. At that moment, I was relieved, hoping this older gentleman could de-escalate things. In retrospect, I realized Gerald was no benevolent figure. He was probing, testing our reactions, and trying to gauge Claire's intelligence. Within a week, bogus legal documents began arriving in our mail. They were laughably amateur, using bizarre fonts and misspelling attorney. I laughed them off, but Claire did not. She photographed every single page from multiple angles and carefully preserved the envelopes in plastic bags, as if they were forensic evidence. "Why are you taking this so seriously?" I asked. She simply replied, "You never know when documentation will be necessary." That should have been my second clue. Martin's behavior intensified rapidly. He'd cruise by our home nightly in a white SUV, complete with flashing amber lights he likely purchased from a hardware store. He logged all of Claire's activities. Trash cans out too early, watering the lawn for too long, even the angle of her parked car. He once shouted as he passed, "Your wife's attitude is destroying our property values." I was incensed, ready to confront him, but Claire always restrained me. "Let them perform," she'd murmur, perfectly calm, as a phone discreetly recorded every incident. The neighborhood began to gossip. Martin's wife, Denise, started filming Claire during HOA meetings, whispering loudly, "I hear she doesn't even have a real job." The assembled crowd would titter, but Claire would only offer a polite, vacant smile, allowing them to believe she was oblivious. Except, I would catch her scanning the room, mentally noting who laughed and who remained silent. She wasn't ignoring them. She was mapping the social terrain, identifying allies and adversaries. I started to register other small inconsistencies. The methodical sequence she used to check our door and window locks every night. How she never positioned herself with her back to an entrance in public. The flicker of recognition in her eyes when our neighbor's nephew, a military police officer, offered to deal with the fake cops a flicker she quickly masked with a smile. Then, one evening, Martin returned, but he wasn't alone. He was with his cousin, Rick, an unemployed security guard from out of state. They appeared at our door wearing imitation uniforms and flashing badges that looked like they'd come from a cereal box. One of them was even misspelled. It would have been comical if they weren't holding actual weapons. Rick attempted a gruff voice. "We're here regarding your wife's suspicious activities." Claire tilted her head, feigning confusion. "Suspicious? Oh my, I don't understand." But I watched her body subtly adjust. Her weight shifted to the balls of her feet. Her hands angled slightly. It wasn't fear. It was preparation. They insisted on inspecting our home. "We have reasonable suspicion," Martin barked. I started to panic, wondering if we should just comply. Claire neutralized the demand with surgical precision. "I'm sorry, officers. You'll require a warrant for that." Her tone, her vocabulary, it was too sharp, too exact. This wasn't something she'd learned in a self-defense seminar. She knew procedural law. When they retreated, I turned to her. "Claire, what is going on? You handled that. You knew exactly what to say." She met my gaze steadily. "I can't explain right now. Please trust me." The way she said can't, not won't, told me she was bound by rules far bigger than our suburban dispute. The harassment escalated from there. Anonymous notes, fabricated fines, and neighbors suddenly expressing concern about Claire's background. One woman even appeared at our door in tears, claiming Martin was abusive, clearly fishing for information. Claire saw right through the act. After the woman left, Claire showed me the tissue she'd used. "Cold cream," she noted. "No saline. Reconnaissance." She added it to her growing file. That's when I finally understood. Claire wasn't just offending. She was running a count operation. She began disseminating false information to track its path. She mentioned to one neighbor that she worked in tax preparation. The very next day, Martin appeared with fake IRS documents. She just smiled. Hook, line, and sinker. I was terrified. She, however, seemed invigorated, as if she'd finally been authorized to use a skill set she had long kept dormant. I overheard her on a late-night call, using phrases like escalation patterns and operational behavior. When I inquired, she claimed it was just her gym partner, Rachel. But when Rachel arrived at our house, she didn't look like a gym buddy. She looked like a federal agent, which is precisely what she was. Rachel spread case files across our dining table. Martin and Gerald weren't just local nuisances. They were components of a sophisticated fraud syndicate targeting military families across 3 states. They impersonated officials to intimidate spouses and seize assets while soldiers were deployed, stealing over $3 million. Claire had been documenting their entire local operation with the precision of an intelligence officer. Rachel stated it plainly. "Your wife's work is a linchpin that's going to bring this entire network down." That night, Claire finally admitted a fraction of the truth. She wasn't a fitness coach. She trained special operations units, Army, Navy, all of them. For 15 years, her job had been to prepare some of the world's most elite soldiers for combat scenarios. She was bound by non-disclosure agreements that forbade her from telling anyone, even family, because their operational security depended on her secrecy. She looked me dead in the eye. "Evan, I wasn't hiding this from you. I was protecting you." It all culminated at an emergency HOA meeting organized by Gerald. It was pure theater. Martin and Rick arrived in full tactical wannabe gear, one carrying a pistol, the other a taser. The room was full of neighbors, half anxious, half entertained. Gerald declared Claire a danger to the community. I will never forget the moment Martin raised his weapon and pointed it directly at Claire's chest. "We're done playing games with your wife," he yelled. The room descended into chaos. People scrambled under tables. Phones emerged, dialing 911. My legs felt weak. Then, in less than 3 seconds, Claire moved. It was a blur. She disarmed Martin, disabled Rick, and had both men neutralized on the floor before most people had even registered the threat. The room went completely silent, then erupted in cheers. I was frozen, my heart hammering, staring at the woman I thought I knew. "Claire, who are you?" I whispered. She looked at me, perfectly composed. I train the people who protect this country. And he just pointed a gun at one of them. Rachel and her team swept in, placing federal cuffs on Gerald, Martin, and Rick. The neighbors filmed the entire takedown. Within hours, videos of Claire neutralizing two armed men were everywhere. The hashtags exploded. #Suburban Wife versus #Fake Cops. The legal consequences were swift and severe. Gerald received 15 years in federal prison. Martin got 5 for impersonation and assault. Rick got 3. The crying neighbor was identified as a career con artist. The entire ring collapsed. Our neighborhood, once fractured, held a block party on Martin's former lawn. Kids drew chalk art of Claire as a superhero. The HOA was dissolved and reformed, with new bylaws permanently banning harassment. But the most significant transformation wasn't the neighborhood. It was me. For 15 years, I had labored under the assumption that I was a protector in our marriage, the one shielding my sweet wife from the world. The reality was, she had been protecting me all along. Protecting me, our neighbors, and soldiers overseas, all while allowing me to keep my pride intact. Now, every time I see her teaching a free self-defense workshop at the community center, every time I watch her smile and wave like just another suburban mom, I know the truth. Behind that smile is someone who could dismantle a small army. And maybe that's what a real partnership is. Trusting that the other person is carrying burdens you can't see, until the moment comes when they are finally revealed. So, this brings me to my question for you. What would you do if you discovered the person you've lived with for years was hiding a side of themselves you could never have imagined? Would you feel betrayed? Or proud? Would you be angry they kept it secret? Or grateful they shielded you from the weight of it?